got the cornfield calm, Midwest tone, but he's spitting facts like a dog with a bone. Lanky frame, fire-haired, eyes on the case, breaking down the game in the darkest place. Sports scores to murder boards, Hoosier logic cuts like swords. From Friday lights to chalked out lines, this redhead's brain rewrites the lines inside the Hoosier mind, where the stories twist and stats unwind. He's a legend in flannel, mic in hand, digging deep where few can stand. From touchdowns to crime scenes raw, he's got the truth in every draw. Yeah, step in if you dare to find what's brewing inside the Hoosier mind. He'll talk Pacers, Colts, or Colts on trial. Hoosier humor with a devilish smile. He's that redhead sleuth with a box of clues, takes your headline, breaks the news. With every stat and every scream, he's painting portraits in your stream. Don't blink, he'll tie it tight, from game night wins to murder flight. Inside the Hoosier mind, where the facts hit hard and the lines are blind. He's a ginger ninja, smooth and slick, cracking cases play by play quick. From courtrooms to the hardwood floor, he digs for more than just the score. Tune in and don't rewind, you're deep now inside the Hoosier mind.
All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome in to Inside the Hoosier Mind, brought to you by Military Broadcast Radio, helping give veterans a voice. It is great to be here on a Tuesday evening. Not only that, but we also have a very short time until we get to the most important one, and that is the kickoff for college football. And man, are we excited. We're only about 11 days away from the first kickoff on the 29th. It's against TCU and North Carolina, as well as you have Virginia and NC State. I'll probably go over those more next week. But nonetheless, we have football coming back very, very soon. MJ in the world of conscious positive thinking is joining us. MJ, appreciate you joining me. I know you were excited. I'm excited to see how your Penn State Nittany Lions do this year, because you guys really, drew the luck of the schedule draw as far as, kind of the easiest Big Ten schedule, probably the easiest schedule in the country for a Power 4 team in a major conference like the Big Ten. So you guys, all eyes are going to be on you as far as Matt Campbell, Rocco Becht, all of that. And, of course, with it only being 11 days until the kickoff of college football, we, of course, have to end the offseason with with some college football drama. And one of the ones that has been sweeping the news more so last week than it is this week, it's kind of died down a little bit, but people are still talking about it because, again, it's the down period. College football hasn't kicked off yet. There's not much to talk about. We just have to stretch out these next 11 days, and then we're golden. But there was a pretty big ripple as far as the sports world goes because of the whole Jayden Daniels and LSU situation, with LSU issuing out number 5 to – he was and still is a All-American freshman cornerback, now going into his sophomore year, DJ Pickett. They issued that number to DJ because that was the number he was promised in order to commit to LSU, as well as, he's a 5-star prospect. He's one of the best in the country. He's 6'4". He actually played last year as a freshman, did pretty decently well. Obviously, he played in kind of rotation with Mansour Delane on the other side, so DJ Pickett was kind of the number 2, number 3 guy. And just because nobody really knew what to expect from him, he was hard to have to manage to deal with. I know he did end up getting an interception in that Florida game against DJ Lackway, but he threw 5 interceptions in that game, so that's really not much of a surprise. But as far as Jayden Daniels and the whole number 5 thing goes, with him being upset at LSU for putting the number back in rotation. So let's look at the facts that we do know so far. There's a lot of speculation that it's his mom and his team that are the ones saying this. As far as we know, Jayden Daniels has not come out directly and said whether or not he hasn't come out directly and shamed this, but nor has he condoned it either. And there's a lot of thought that somebody on his team, we don't know who, again, we more than likely think that it's his mom because his mom's his own agent, that she looks at it as a sign of disrespect to Jayden. And the other fact that we have to look at is more than likely Brian Kelly promised him this of, hey, as long as I'm the head coach here, nobody else will wear number 5. You won Heisman in it. And albeit LSU has only ever had 3 Heismans in its history tenure of a football program. The other 2, that has very much been the case so far. Nobody else has wore Billy Cannon's number 20, who's the only number officially retired by LSU. And ever since Joe Burrow won not only the national championship, but the Heisman, same as Billy Cannon, nobody has worn number 9 ever since. And as of right now, as of August 18th, 2026, more than likely isn't going to ever wear it again. Now, that might change depending on what 5-star prospect comes out of there, what, highly talented recruit either comes out of high school, whether they come out of the transfer portal, whether they reach out to Joe Burrow and ask him his permission on whether or not they can wear number 9. You never know. And speaking of Joe Burrow, he even brought that up in an interview because he was asked, how do you feel in the situation? He had just heard about it. He wasn't going to make a comment. And for him too, I'm sure he's somewhat in the know, but it's also one of those, it's like, it's not really my place to speak, because for him, he doesn't know what Jayden's going through. He doesn't know all the inklings behind the scenes. It's not like LSU still has him on speed dial, like, hey, this is what we're going to do, and he gives the yes or no nod. But with Brian Kelly probably having promised Jayden that, now Brian Kelly's been long since fired and Lane Kiffin comes in, it's hard for you to say no to a 5-star prospect that you recruited there to LSU, more than likely probably got, reached out or contacted through the transfer portal, hey, leave LSU, come to here, come there, and whatnot, and we'll let you wear whatever number you want to wear. If you want to wear 5, we'll let you wear 5. We'll figure out a way. And that's the thing that, to me, when I listened to all the different perspectives on this, because I really didn't hear a lot of people more in favor of Daniels. It's a lot of people, when I watched their reactions, when I listened to what they said on it, I kind of felt in the same way of, you're not bigger than the university itself. You're not bigger than LSU. Now, I'm saying that a little bit of bias, being an LSU fan, attending LSU, all of that. I don't speak on behalf of LSU, but as an LSU fan and as somebody who's grown up watching LSU for a long time, LSU was here before you. LSU will be here after you. And that's one of the things that Jayden really has to. And again, I hate that I'm putting this more on Jayden, because I believe it's more on Jayden's team. Jayden's team needs to realize that more than anything. I look at it, this was something that really hit me hard when I was in the service. And it was funny because as I realized this, and when I would tell other people who they had been in the service for a long time, and I, full transparency, not to get off onto a full, TED Talk rabbit hole as far as my time in the military goes, it really hurt a lot of people's feelings when I would tell people who, they absolutely love the military, they love being in it, they had, devoted, X amount of years to the military, either same as me, if not more. And it was one of those, they're like, oh no, they're going to absolutely fall apart when I leave. Like, nope, no, they ain't. They do not care about you, dude. And it's funny because no, they care about me. Nope. Whatever number you have on your common access card, your military ID, whatever number you have on that, that's the number they associate you with. There's a number before you, there's a number after you, and there's multiple numbers before, and there's multiple numbers after. You are one of a number. And that was a hard thing and many of them still denied it. Many of them still just could not come to terms with the fact of the military, any branch that they served in, no matter what branch, no matter what base, no matter what MOS, AFSC, rate, whatever you want to call it, no matter the position, no matter who you were, no matter what you did, you were replaceable. And the institution, the Department of Defense, Department of War, it was originally the Department of War, then the Department of Defense. Now it's the Department of War and the Department of Defense. Not going down that rabbit hole either. But nonetheless, it was here before you. And when you retire, when your time is done, it's going to be there after you. And to me, that's what Jayden Daniels' team needs to realize with LSU. LSU was a championship-winning program before Jayden got there. They were a great program before Jayden got there. Now, they had a bad year prior to Jayden Daniels getting there. So that is 100% true. He did elevate them to being better, but they still had a bad time. And since Jayden Daniels left, they're still there. They even still had a good season post Jayden Daniels with Garrett Nussmeier. Now, obviously, last year, 7-6, not as good of a year, but they're still there. And LSU still exists with or without Jayden Daniels. Here's the other thing that I feel when I was listening to some of the arguments on whether or not his number should be quote unquote retired. Not all programs retire numbers. Now, LSU, again, they have kind of more of the long-standing tradition of, nobody has wore Billy Cannon's number ever since he won the Heisman and ever since he won the national championship all the way back in 1958. That was a long, long time ago, and it's a way different time. There was also a rule that came out in 2007 from the NCAA. I don't remember the rule in its entirety, but there is a standing rule, I believe, that the player has to basically have left for at least 5 years, or maybe this is LSU's own standing rule, has to have left for at least 5 years before they can even consider retiring the number. Now, obviously, they could have retired Joe Burrow's number if they wanted to. They haven't yet. Why, I don't particularly know. But, obviously, it hasn't been that long since Jayden left, and obviously not long enough for them to merit doing that. For him, because he did win a Heisman, it is one of those that's okay. It's a bit of a slight because, you gave number 5 out. But here's the other way that I look at this, and it was actually brought up by LeVar Arrington, and I feel like he brought up probably one of the best kind of in the middle arguments, if I had to really put it in that way. He brought up the point that when LeVar Arrington was at Penn State and he got to wear number 11, which is the one that he wanted. He got to wear number 11. He made number 11 what it was on defense. Now, obviously, each person is different when it comes to whether or not they want guys after them to wear their number or not. A lot of times, the university may call and ask for permission, such as Penn State with LeVar Arrington, like, hey, this kid wants to wear number 11. Like, is that cool? And he kind of gives the blessing of yes or no. We even see that in professional organizations, too. Look at Peyton Manning with Denver and wearing number 18. He got permission from the family to do that. Same with Malik Neighbors and the Giants on being able to wear number 1. And again, organizations all across the league do it completely differently, and even the same in college football. Every team, every college does it differently as far as how they handle it. And LeVar brought up a good point. He said, for him, number 11 on defense, that means you're the guy. If you look at some of the other famous guys that wore number 11 post LeVar Arrington, he actually called Penn State and asked them to have Navarro Bowman wear number 11 after he left. Same with Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons got to wear number 11 because LeVar Arrington signed off on it. Same with Abdul Carter. There's a couple other guys, I believe, in between there that even got to wear number 11 because he signed off on it. But he brought up a good point. He goes, but that's just on defense. He goes, now offense, he goes, I see guys on offense wear number 11 all the time. Doesn't bother me. And to me, that makes it even more of a compelling argument because I get maybe wanting the number retired as a whole, but if anything, if they gave number 5 to another offensive guy, Okay, now you can feel a little bit slighted. It's on a defensive guy. Number 5 on the defense doesn't have the same doesn't have the same impact as number 5 on the offense does. And that's how LeVar Arrington put it with number 11 at Penn State. Number 11 doesn't have the same impact on offense as it does on defense for Penn State. If you're wearing number 11 on Penn State, especially in today's time and age, that means you're a guy. That means you have been signed off by a dude who also wore number 11 at Penn State, was an all-time great in college football. It was an all-time great for Penn State. I'm sure MJ, you probably remember watching LeVar, and I know he's a Nittany Lion, so you might be a little bit of a fan of him. But I felt like he probably brought it. He made the point the best of it's a defensive guy wearing it. Don't really sweat it as much. And then there was another perspective that to me, I felt also kind of brings a lot of relevancy to it. And believe it or not, Michael Irving talked about this several years ago. He said he didn't want his number retired. And he brought up the point of when you have a number retired, he goes, think about it. You think about any number for any potential sports team, right? You can look at the Bears, for example, of number 54 for Brian Urlacher. Like he made number 54 completely relevant. He's a big-time player, one of the best in franchise history for the Bears. And nobody had worn 54 until one of the new offensive linemen, he gave him his blessing to wear 54. Now, do we know if it's going to be good or not? We don't know. But it brings relevancy back to the number. He said if you retire a number and it goes up in the rafters, he goes, unless somebody looks up, unless somebody makes mention of it, either on a broadcast, on television, he goes, because unless you go to the stadium, you're not going to see it. You're not going to. They may show them for like a couple seconds, like, oh, hey, look at all the retired jerseys, like here, look at all the retired numbers, and you even may see it in the background. It's not going to be a highlight, though. And Michael Irving brought up a really good point with that. He said, look at even his time in Dallas. He said, they didn't retire number 88, and he wasn't even the original big number 88 in Dallas. You had Drew Pearson before that who wore number 88. Man, I think maybe people wore it in between there. I don't really remember or know off the top of my head. But then Michael Irving comes in. He wears it, makes 88 a completely big name, and then you associate 88 with Michael Irving and Drew Pearson. Now, I believe there was another, I believe it was Antonio Bryant was the name after Michael Irving to wear it, that he was supposed to be the next big star. Didn't really happen, and then 88 just wasn't worn for a while until Des Bryant came into the picture. And now, whenever you think of 88, you think Des Bryant, you think Michael Irving, you think Drew Pearson. After Des Bryant leaves, nobody wears it, then they draft CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb wears 88. So now, again, when you think of 88 and you think the Cowboys, Michael Irving is a name that's associated with it because they don't retire it, because they put such an emphasis and a highlight on a number like that. They bring up all the other previous star players that have gotten to wear that number. Now, that's a bit of a different tradition as far as, hey, we typically give this to guys who we think or we, quote unquote, know are going to be great in the league. We want you to be associated with that number along with these other legends. And I feel like that's a completely logical argument. And for Jayden Daniels, I mean, it's only been a couple of years since you left, so it's not like people are going to forget you that quickly, especially in the modern sports day world. Like if they've watched any kind of sports and they follow any kind of college football, you're not completely forgotten to history. But, 10, 15 years down the road when your career is potentially done, that may end up being an argument of, hey, like if you see somebody out there wearing number 5, like, oh yeah, another, who the last great quarterback to wear number 5 for LSU was? Jayden Daniels. He won a Heisman. Like that brings relevancy. That keeps your name going, even though, yes, you did something spectacular with the number. You did something great. To me, I feel like if you retire a number, if you do something like that, you kind of get lost to history. But again, that's just me personally. It's one of those when I heard about this and I saw it, I was like, I feel like this is just we're bored. We're in the last home stretch of trying to get to college football, and it kind of reminds me of like whenever you were in school, and it's like, man, we're like this close to summer break, and it's like those last few days just drag on the absolute worst. It's like it takes forever for anything to happen. It takes forever for any type of movement to go through. And I honestly kind of feel like that's really the case with this. MJ brought up the point. She said, honestly, today I believe more balance with numbers needs to be reevaluated. Only so many players and numbers through the years. I'm glad I brought this topic up. I appreciate that, MJ. And that does bring up another good point. Even though it's not football related, look at the Yankees. I think they have like 20 something number, like 22 numbers retired, and there's only 99. Well, technically 100 if you count zero. But like, you only have so many numbers. And if you retire 22 of them, okay, well, it's going to leave less numbers for people to be able to pick, moving on. And that's completely why the NFL actually had to change their number rules of, I believe the Giants and the Bears have the most numbers retired. And it's like, one was technically retired by the Giants until Malik Neighbors was able to get permission to wear it. Number 11 by Phil Simms, number 56 for Lawrence Taylor. The Bears have, I think, 34-7. 34-7. There's a few. There's actually a ton more by Chicago that's been retired. 89 for Mike Ditka. I think 51. Like all of them have been like 58, I believe. All of those numbers have been retired by Chicago, the Giants, the Yankees. Like all of these different teams have so many numbers retired. And don't get me wrong, if they are that player that makes that big of an impact on the franchise, that's completely understandable. But when you have a franchise that's been around for hundreds of years, and with the potential idea that it's going to continue to be around for hundreds of years, why retire the number? Like, I know there's some colleges like you can wear the number, but then you have like a patch or like a sticker of like, hey, these are other great players that have worn this number too, to keep the relevance, to keep the history attached to that number, but not keep the number out of circulation, kind of thing. So that, like I said, that's kind of my thought on it. I don't think it's the end of the world if you don't retire a number, and especially now in college football. I mean, the way the landscape is currently set up, of you are constantly having to fight other people for your roster. You're constantly having to fight people as far as getting your recruits in. And that was already an issue to start with before of, how do we get a recruit in? How do we keep this guy from potentially going to a rival or potentially going to another conference? And especially if they're like a homegrown state kid, it's like, man, how do we keep them in state? How do we keep them here and keep our team growing? And sometimes for some kids, the number is it. I mean, when you think about NIL and you think about, bringing your name, your image, your likeness, and your brand, it's what a lot of kids have been taught how to do. Of like, hey, look at TB12, for example. It's like he's always going to be associated with 12. It's like I have to have that number. Like that is my brand, and that's how some of these kids, that's kind of their business model. And realistically, like when you're an athlete like that, especially collegiate, potentially going pro, and you can get paid money for this, you have to have a brand. So if you're a kid that's like, man, I want to potentially go to LSU, and it's like, oh, but I can't wear number 5. Man, I've worn number 5 my whole life. Maybe I won't go to LSU. Like that could be a real thing. MJ, yeah, I guess they can have an elite group win, and if it gets retired again, they might find out there's more honor in being able to wear it. Most children pick a number as they looked up to the number 11 player. And there's another guy I know people aren't as big of a fan of him, but Emmanuel Acho brought this up for him. He idolized number 11 at Texas because I believe that was Derek Johnson for the Chiefs. That's who he grew up watching and emulating when it came to playing football, and that's who he wanted to wear. And he was like, no. So for a lot of kids, yeah, I mean, that would be an absolute dream. I mean, think about any kid if they're 6, 7, 8 years old and they remember watching Jayden play, if they're old enough, and it's like, hey, I want to wear number 5 because that's who I want to emulate. You can even go as far as into like basketball. Back in the day, everybody wanted to wear 23 because of Jordan. Everybody wanted to wear 34 because of Shaq. Everybody wanted to wear 33 because of Larry Bird. And then when Allen Iverson came in, everybody wanted to wear 3. Like it. If you have the honor and you have the approval to be able to wear a number like that, it's cool to be able to do because, like you said, MJ, you get to have the honor of wearing it. Maybe it's a childhood hero. Maybe it's a childhood hero for somebody else. But it's also an honor because that team, that franchise, that organization, whoever feels, hey, We think with your talent, your leadership capabilities, how you play, whatever the intangibles or tangibles may or may not be, we have this big of faith in you. We want to associate you with a Legends number. And that to me is a really cool thing. Um, and then a little bit of a side tangent before we wrap this argument up. There was one more uh, argument that was made that kind of made me laugh because I do remember this happening. There was a kid, I think it was Deuce Knight at Auburn. I don't think he's at Auburn anymore, but it was a quarterback going to Auburn. He's a very highly touted prospect coming out of high school. He wanted to wear Cam Newton's number 2. And he even called Cam Newton and said, "Hey, man, can I wear your number 2 there at Auburn?" And to censor quote Cam, he said, and I quote, "F no. Make your own number. Make a number that's associated with you." So, I mean, I get that same argument too from guys who, if they've made a legacy, it's like, no, that I did that with that number. You make your own journey. You be your own you. Don't try to be me. Don't try to be Cam Newton. Try to be whoever you are individually, and you make the number that you want to make. And it was kind of the same argument that people made for Abdul Carter last year coming out of Penn State to go to the Giants. He wanted to wear 11, retired. He wanted to wear 56, retired. And both of them said no. So to me, it's like I do get it of wanting to kind of have that honor and acknowledge them. And with the hopes that you're going to also meet those expectations, but at the same time, yeah, make your own story, make your own number. You are uniquely you. There's only one of you in the entire world, whether you're a twin, triplet, quadruplet, octuplet, whatever the case may be. There's only one of you. So make your journey, make your number who you want to be and how you want it to be associated. But nonetheless, good topic, and I appreciate that, MJ. Appreciate you chiming in on that, especially with you being a Penn State fan. Because, like I said, I heard LeVar say it, and I really liked his take on it. So with that, though, like I said, we're 11 days away from college football. We're still a couple weeks away from the NFL kicking off the beginning of September. But in the meantime, we have the preseason, and the preseason, I don't dive deep into the preseason. Typically, I might point out a couple things. I know Mike and I kind of talked a little bit last week with preseason about how some teams did, if there's any rookies we think may or may not stand out. I know Fernando Mendoza ended up having a pretty good little bit of a season debut for the Raiders as far as some of his performance goes against some of the first string starters for Arizona. But overall, though, I mean, it's all vanilla schemes. There's not really a whole lot of fanciness. It's just to kind of get them an idea of what a little bit of game speed might look like. And of course, some of the guys that they're playing with may or may not even be on the roster if they themselves are even on the roster. But one of the big things that was talked about was Jaxson Dart. The Vikings played the Giants this past weekend. It was a really ugly game. I mean, it's preseason. I didn't expect anything pretty or fancy, but man, it was bad. But Jaxson Dart gets hit by the Vikings cornerback. Nasty hit. He was just completely unblocked. Takes a hit, immediately goes to the ground. After that, he gets taken into the blue medical tent. Jameis Winston comes in, finishes for him. I believe he did end up coming out for one more drive, or maybe even what was left of that drive after they evaluated him for a concussion. And he ultimately ended up finishing, but it's not something that you want to see, especially if you're a Giants fan. It's not something you want to see from your star quarterback, especially from last year, taking a hit like that in a meaningless preseason game. This is one of those, it's where I do kind of have a little bit of an issue with the preseason, and I've talked about this personally myself for the last few years. I get the purpose of preseason. Sometimes it's getting guys a little bit acclimated. You can only do so much in practice. You can only do so much even in like one-on-one practice where you practice with another team simultaneously, so you get a little bit of an idea there. So I get that in the sense of maybe getting guys a little bit of rust, maybe get them into that game shape, get them used to getting hit and whatnot, getting ready. It's the first preseason game of the year, man. Like, you still got 2 more after this. You could have easily put him in next game, even the last game if you wanted to. You didn't have to put him in the first game. But for him to take a hit like that and then immediately go into the blue tent, that's just absolutely insane. And it's not a good start. And if I was a Giants fan, that's not a good start that I'd want to see from Coach Harbaugh of like, hey, why is our starting guy out there just getting absolutely blown to smithereens by an unblocked defensive guy from Minnesota? So it did bring up apparently a good point of Jaxson Dart said he's kind of annoyed with the fact that every time he gets hit, they immediately bring him into the blue tent and they start evaluating him for a concussion. That does bring up a couple of things. One, it's at least hopefully they're recognizing that the whole CTE issue, the whole issue with all of that and just players' health in general truly matters, and that they're trying to make sure that they're doing their due diligence. But it also makes you wonder, is he taking more hits and is he truly not healthy to the point where they're having to basically force him to go in the medical tent? And some guys are like that, especially in a competitive sport where, and if you go down and the next guy comes up, you may not get your spot back. Now for him, he's kind of in that sweet spot because don't get me wrong, I like J-Mo, I like Jameis Winston. He's entertaining. He's grown a lot, but he's still funny. I don't think you have to worry about losing your job, Jameis Winston, but nonetheless, it does bring up a good point of I get where they want to be protective. I get where they want to make sure that they're doing their due diligence for him. But I also feel that it's kind of tiptoeing a line of you're evaluating so much that then when is the question going to be brought up of when should we just get rid of this as a whole? Now, I know that's always kind of a fear tactic and a fear topic that everybody brings up. I think every single year as they kind of adjust the rules for some stuff, like when you can't hit a quarterback, you can't hit a player like below the knees, you can't hit a player above his head. All these different, and it's for player safety, and it's one of those. I don't disagree. I think that there does need to an extent be some type of safety in there. Like you can't just be letting guys absolutely get their heads taken off from a hit or their knees and legs blown out from underneath them from a guy just doing a tackle and whatnot. So I mean, there does need to be a level of safety. But truly, I don't know if the NFL would ever go to the point of kind of being like basically a non-touching or flag football league. I don't think that would ever happen. I think just because the amount of money that they make, now again, they're going to continue to emphasize safety. They're probably going to crack down on a lot of things, but I don't necessarily think they would get rid of it. Now, obviously, it changes every single year. There's always going to be controversial calls. There's always going to be controversial hits. But I don't think it's ultimately going to end the game that we love that much. But nonetheless, though, it was just sad and weird to see Dart have to take a hit like that in the preseason. It wasn't the first play, but it was kind of into the first drive, and he was just completely unblocked and hit. So it will be interesting to see how they decide to go with the rest of the season. Like I said, if it was me, if you want to start him in the starting offensive line for like a drive, I would say do it like third game, and I would only do it for like one, maybe two drives if you really feel it's necessary, because obviously any given play, any given drive, you can have a massive season-ending injury happen potentially, and hopefully not, but you unfortunately could even have a career-ending injury happen. It's the way the world works. It's the way the game works. So hopefully that does not happen. But nonetheless, though, that is the risk that they run. So hopefully the Harbaugh and the Giants get that figured out. But the last topic I wanted to talk about, though, is came out last week, I believe. Excuse me. This came out last week, and it was the official AP Top 25 poll, and it wasn't too far off of what the coaches poll was. There's a few teams ultimately ended up getting switched around. I don't remember what they were off the top of my head, but I mean, they were super, super close. I mean, there's some on here. I can bring it up to show that it was really close. If I remember correctly, the coaches had Texas and Notre Dame flipped. They had Oklahoma and Ole Miss flipped. LSU and Alabama flipped. believe Washington and Penn State were flipped. I think SMU was just after Tennessee. And then the other major difference with them was Clemson was at 23 in the coaches AP, in the coaches poll. And Louisville was actually not even in here, and Houston was bumped down to 24. So this is the official preseason top 25 of how it looks right now. And it's kind of funny when you look at it. The only one that I would say I really kind of disagree with, but then after that, honestly, it's kind of a hodgepodge of however you want to put them, however you want to lay them out. I think I would honestly put Oregon at 1. Now, some of this might be, Ohio State has the continuity of Ryan Day still. They still have the continuity of Matt Patricia on defense. The defense has been solid the last few years. I know even last year they thought that the defense was going to take a step back because of all the draft picks that went before then. They ultimately ended up being one of the best defenses in the country. Now, obviously, they have to replace Brian Hartline with Arthur Smith. How does that ultimately end up working out? But they do get the niceness of the continuity of Julian Sayin. They still have Jeremiah Smith. How does Chris Henry Jr. ultimately end up working out there on the offense? And how does he respond? Because more likely teams are going to try to be doubling Jeremiah Smith. So is Chris Henry Jr. Going to be getting a lot of looks, and I believe even the third wide receiver. I don't remember his name off the top of my head, but how is he going to also look? Because, they could both have potentially really big seasons just because everybody's going to be trying to guard and double team Jeremiah Smith. If it was me, though, I would probably put Oregon at 1 just because of all the talent that they had. They brought a ton of pieces back. They really didn't lose a lot in the draft. Now, they lost key players. They lost Thieneman. They lost the tight end to the Jets. So, they lost guys, but they still brought Dante Moore back. Now they have Dylan Raiola as his backup. So if anything does happen to Dante, they have somebody who has starting experience, who has a better supporting cast of team around him. So there's a lot of good things that could come out of that. Georgia at 3 is the only other one that kind of makes me think a little bit. And honestly and truthfully, if it was me building it, I would probably move Georgia to about 5 and maybe move Notre Dame or Texas up to 3 and 4. You can kind of take your pick as far as who you'd want to be at 3 or 4, either Texas or Notre Dame. That's where I'd put them. I'd move Georgia down to 5. The biggest reason being, I don't know who Georgia's going to throw to. I don't know what their wide receiver room looks like. That's been the biggest question mark for them pretty much all offseason is who is Gunnar Stockton going to throw to? What are they going to look like offensively? Secondary-wise, they have one of the best secondaries in the country right there with Alabama. But again, offensively, can they move the ball? And who is Gunnar Stockton going to throw to? So that would be one change I would probably make. Indiana at 6, there is a lot of questions there as far as how does Josh Hoover ultimately end up looking? How does he do? Again, Miami, kind of the same thing. They lost a lot of guys in the draft on the offensive line and the defensive line. And obviously, how does Darian Mensah end up filling in there at quarterback after Carson Beck is gone? So it's like once you get to like 5 through kind of 7, you can kind of toss those, and I could probably make an argument for or against them. Texas A&M at 8, kind of the same thing. They brought a lot of guys back. They filled in a lot of holes from the transfer portal. To me, though, can Texas A&M take that next step? And what I mean by that is, can they get a big quality win against somebody who has kind of been a boogeyman for them? Now I know Texas A&M, they go to Tuscaloosa to face Alabama, and then of course they have to face Texas, they have to face LSU again, but they face them in Death Valley. And if I remember correctly, they host Texas this time, so they at least get that benefit. But they need to get a big win like that. This has been a Texas A&M team. They always come in very highly recruited, very highly touted. They always have a ton of talent on Texas A&M, but it's like they can never put it all together. Last year they went 11-1. The only loss being to Texas, which was kind of a shocker of all things. I'm not saying they have to win every single game, but they got to show that they have some toughness and they have some grit. Like, you won 11 games, made it in the playoffs, but then you lose 10-7 to Miami, which is kind of crazy to have lost it in that kind of a manner. Because no knock to them or Miami, because Miami ended up going to the national championship. But that is kind of one of the craziest parts. Is it's like Texas A&M has to take that next step forward, and can they do that? Now I think 8 is a pretty good place for them, just because again they brought a lot of pieces back and they've supplemented a lot of positions, but we'll see how it goes. Ole Miss at 9, I don't disagree with this, just because kind of the same thing. They're bringing a lot of continuity back. Pete Golding is still the head coach. Now, obviously, they're fully replacing the offensive staff. They still have Trinidad Chambliss. They still have Keywan Lacey. But again, what do they look like post Lane Kiffin and Charlie Wise Jr.? I think that's what a lot of people forget is throughout that playoff run, they still had Charlie Wise Jr. They still had a lot of that offensive staff that Lane Kiffin ended up bringing with him to LSU. But will they have that coming into how that offense look with Trinidad Chambliss and Keywan Lacey going into this? Oklahoma at 10, I like this, especially if John Mateer can stay healthy. I definitely think they're a top 10 team. Kind of the same thing. They didn't really lose a whole lot of pieces on that defense, which absolutely carried them last year. The biggest question, though, can the offense be above average to complement that defense? It feels like every single year, and Joel Klatt even brought this up, and I wholeheartedly agree, that it feels like every single year Oklahoma either had a really good offense for so many years and the defense couldn't stop a wet paper bag, or like last year, the defense was absolutely stout and the offense could not move hardly at all. Now, not necessarily fair, because Mateer got hurt. Prior to him getting hurt, he was a Heisman front runner. Got hurt, had surgery, came back, and just wasn't the same post then. If they can keep him healthy, and if he can stay healthy, I think we're in a completely different conversation, though. LSU at 11, I'll be honest, even as an LSU fan, I don't know if I'd put him at 11. And a majority of that is I just don't know what to expect. I don't know what the offense is going to look like. On paper, they should be solid. On paper, everything is there. Obviously, they kept Blake Baker as the defensive coordinator for them. And they bring, Charlie Weiss from Ole Miss. Lane Kiffin is obviously a guru on the offense. They have Sam Levitt from Arizona State, who, when he gets out of the pocket and he scrambles, he makes magic happen. But again, I don't know what to expect, because there's 40 plus new guys coming into this LSU roster, and Lane Kiffin has to try to make them all work. Now, he did it at Ole Miss. He was very successful, and I mean, they had a great year last year. I don't know how well that translates over to LSU. And again, a lot of new guys, new system. How does it work? Don't know. So I don't know if I would necessarily put them 11. I don't know where I would put them, but it's like, I don't know about that, but we'll see. Texas Tech at 12, I kind of see that. I feel like had they been able to keep Sorsby in that whole situation not falling through, I think Texas Tech would have been in the top 10. I would have probably put them at 8 or 9, and either bump Ole Miss or Oklahoma, maybe even Texas A&M kind of up or down a little bit. But I would have had Texas Tech in the top 10 had Brendan Sorsby stayed. They're going to go with Will Hammond, who he balled out last year against Utah. But again, there's just a lot of unproven question marks. They did really well in the transfer portal. They supplemented a lot of guys. They lost a lot of guys. But I mean, I still expect them to be able to come out of the Big 12 with no issue. Maybe against BYU, but ultimately I would have them winning it. Alabama at 13. I think that's more of a testament to Alabama's defense more than anything. They lost a lot of key guys on offense. They lost Caden Proctor. They lost Giovanni Bernard. They lost a lot of pieces everywhere. And, of course, they lost Ty Simpson as well. So who's it going to be a quarterback? Is it going to be Keelan Russell? Is it going to be Austin Mack? Who is going to be quarterback for the Tide? And then, of course, how does Kalen DeBoer respond to all of this? Because, I mean, everybody's potentially calling for his job. Now he got an extension, so it's not like he could get fired. I doubt it. But, at 13, I think a lot of that's just a pure nod to their defense and how good their defense is more likely going to be this season, especially their secondary. So I don't necessarily hate them being at 13, but it is kind of nice to not see them in the top 10, just personal bias. USC at 14, I feel like that's fairly respectable. Jaden Mayaba's back. They obviously lost some guys in the draft, especially like Makai Lemon. That's going to be hard to replace. But I mean, this is probably going to be one of Lincoln Riley's best years as far as you're in the Big Ten. It's now year 3 going into the Big Ten. You have a fairly decent schedule. A lot of your tough opponents you get to host, but you do have a couple tough road games that you have to go on the road in the cold in the Midwest, like Indiana in the middle of November. That's going to be a cold game, but we'll see. I feel like 14 is a good spot for them though. BYU at 15, kind of the same thing. They brought a lot of people back. Bear Bachmeier's still there. They were able to keep their star running back. Now, one of the issues, they did lose their star wide receiver because of some personal conduct issues there for BYU. So who does Bear Bachmeier throw to? What does that ultimately look like? Now, the benefit is they are in the Big 12. They technically don't have to face Texas Tech unless they make the Big 12 championship. So there is a very high possibility that they may be sitting there at the end of the season at 11-0, 12-0. Their biggest test will definitely be Notre Dame, and of course they have Utah as well, but it won't be the end of the world. But it'll be interesting to see how the Cougs look at, but I don't mind them at 15. Michigan at 16, I feel like that's kind of a nod to Kyle Whittingham. The offenses should be better for Bryce Underwood as far as the wide receivers go. They have a 5-star prospect. They have French from Texas. The defense should be a little bit better, especially with Kyle Whittingham as head coach. So Michigan at 16, I feel like is a pretty decent spot. They can, and with their schedule, they still have an opportunity to move up. And I think even if they lose, especially to someone like USC, and they still have kind of a chance. And I know they face Indiana, but I believe it's in Ann Arbor. If they can get a win there, it's like, okay, there's potential for us to root. There's room for growth. There's room for us to move up. Now they do have a tough right out of the gate facing off against Oklahoma. But again, if they can keep it close, if there's something there, I don't think that'll hurt their rankings too bad. Washington at 17, kind of the same thing. Jed Fish is really good. They have DeMond Williams. Again, they're replacing some people, but it's not the end of the world. They have probably one of the best winning records when it comes to being at home in Husky Stadium, so I like them at 17. Penn State at 18 is kind of interesting just because of we don't know what Penn State's going to look like. It's all a good chunk of Iowa State players all there in Happy Valley. Playing for Matt Campbell now, Rocco Becht. So 18 I don't feel like is bad. I think the only thing that might hurt them is the fact that they have such an easy schedule. Like they only have, I think, a couple big games that they have to play. If I remember right, they don't have to face Ohio State. They don't have to face Oregon. I don't believe they have to face Indiana either. So it's like kind of all but kind of walk your way potentially into competing for a Big Ten championship spot. But it does kind of make me wonder too, will you have enough there to be able to warrant moving up in the rankings because of who you face as far as quality of opponents and whatnot? We'll see. SMU at 19, kind of the same thing. I feel like that's not a bad spot for them to start with. And honestly and truthfully, there's been a lot of people, myself included, feel that after Miami, because I feel like a lot of people have Miami all but locked in the ACC championship game, Louisville versus SMU, that a lot of people, I think, whoever probably wins that battle, as long as they don't trip up anywhere in the future, more than likely that's going to be the other team that faces Miami for the ACC championship. Now, that could be completely wrong. Virginia Tech can maybe sneak in there. Maybe both teams slip up, barring any crazy injuries or firings. But with Jeff Brom there at Louisville, anything's possible. SMU brings a lot back. As far as Jennings as the quarterback, Brett Lashley, the head coach, has done great with SMU, especially because they don't get any of the conference revenue money. Like they joined the ACC and said, no, we won't. If you let us join, you don't have to pay us. We'll take care of everything ourselves. Crazy, but it's absolutely working. Tennessee at 20, kind of respect, kind of a nod to them, just because the talent they had. I feel like Tennessee's kind of in the same position as Alabama. Is it George McIntyre? Is it Brendan Fraser? Who is it? Who is it that's quarterbacking the Vols? So we'll see how that ultimately ends up going. I know Mike and Randy on the Vols. I like Tennessee. Even though I'm an LSU fan, Tennessee's kind of that other team in the SEC. I'm like, I can rock with them. It'll be interesting to see how they go. So 20, I feel like is still kind of a nod to Josh Heupel and what Tennessee has been able to do in the past. Utah 21, kind of the same thing. I respect to the team that's built. Devin Dampier still coming back there to Utah. Now they lost a lot of key pieces as far as offensive line, a lot of transfers to Michigan and whatnot. So it'll be interesting to see. But again, they're kind of in a sweet spot of, they don't have the toughest schedule in the Big 12. They don't have the easiest, but they don't have the toughest. They're in the Big 12. Anything is possible. And I feel like once you get to 21 to 25, kind of any win can maybe bump you up a little bit, but even if you lose, it's not completely and totally the end of the world. Same with Iowa. That's kind of respect to Kurt Ferentz and whatnot there, and Kinnick. So, I mean, shout out to them again. I think defensively they're going to be good. It's going to be a huge offensive question, though. 23 with Houston, I believe Willie Fritz is the head coach. Kind of a nod to them. They bring Connor Wakeman back, their starting quarterback. Houston should be better. Again, probably one of those teams that may be vying for a shot at the Big 12 championship. Now, they do have to face Texas Tech early on, which is kind of a pain in the butt for them. But again, if they can at least keep it close, if they can get a big win there, they should be okay. Now, Louisville at 24, obviously we talked about a lot of people have them potentially penciled in, them or SMU, as far as facing Miami for the ACC championship. Now, Louisville does have a little bit of a tough schedule to start with. They start out the year facing Ole Miss, but it's at a neutral site. I believe it's in Nashville, if I remember correctly. And then they have to face SMU, and they don't have anybody else. They don't have Clemson. They don't have Miami. They don't have Florida State. They don't do any of that. So, I mean, if they can do, or maybe they do have Florida State, but nonetheless, if they can keep going, especially with Jeff Brom and how he does everything, Louisville could be a team to watch out for in the ACC at least. So, I mean, I feel like kind of 24 is kind of a nod to that of like, hey, we're going to give you a foot in the door. Let's see what you do with it. And then Mizzou at 25, like I said, I feel like 21 to 25 is one of those. It's teams that are like just on the outside kind of looking in. If you're equating it to like college basketball, it's like they're on the bubble of looking in. It's like, we respect you, we respect the brand, you had a really good year, you maybe finished the year, you have a history of being good. You're not good enough. We don't feel like you're in the top 15, but you're definitely a top 25 team. And I feel like that's kind of Mizzou. And it's funny because the teams that are just on the outside, the two biggest names that one of them I'm really surprised they didn't put in over Mizzou was Clemson. Clemson had the next most votes as far as they were the number 2016 for the AP preseason top poll. Clemson's sitting there right at 26. So they put Mizzou just ahead of them. But, I mean, a lot of that I think is due to what is Clemson going to look like. Now, I have a lot of questions as far as what does Mizzou look like. Bo Perula's not there. The kid that transferred from Austin Simmons, I believe, from Ole Miss, he went to Mizzou in the transfer portal. So how does he look? But they have Ahmad Hardy at running back. So, I mean, I don't know what to expect from Mizzou, but I'm not going to sit here and say that they're going to be awful. So I feel like 25 is not bad for them. And if I had to compare them up against Clemson, I probably would move them ahead of Clemson, honestly, because, again, I just don't know what to expect. Clemson had a lot of people drafted. The whole Cade Klubnik thing completely fell through. He's gone. They don't know who they're going to have at quarterback. Even Dabo said, I don't know who I'm going to have at quarterback yet. We'll find out. And then Florida, I believe, was the next team after that, but it was like 100-plus gap in between Clemson and Florida. But nonetheless, though, excited that there's only 11 days left until we have college football back. So excited. August 29th, when we get college football back here in the U.S. And funny enough, the very first game starts over in Ireland between UNC and TCU. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate everybody watching. We are almost to season 5 of Inside the Hoosier Mind, which is crazy to think. I technically started this back in 2020, right before COVID kicked off. And then, of course, I had the thought of, oh, yeah, I'll be able to do a podcast. I'll have all this time at home. Wrong. I was military and medical. I didn't have no time off. So luckily I was able to get started more full-time in 2021 and keep it going. And then it slowly been more consistent throughout the years now. But appreciate everybody tuning in. I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show, though, but big shout out to Military Broadcast Radio, who helps give veterans a voice. Thank them for, as always, hosting, giving veterans a platform, giving myself a platform to be able to talk sports and talk with people all the time. And of course, with a ton of other great veteran hosts. So big shout out to Military Broadcast Radio. If you want to help MBR out, not even me, just MBR, as far as helping, donate to a veteran, helping veterans get equipment, teaching them, anything like that MBR does, because they do a ton of work for the community. Definitely check them out at mbradio.us. And then also big shout out to Gunfighter Beard Company. He has great beard care products. He's Marine out of South Carolina. His stuff always smells good, makes your beard feel great, because guys, you gotta take care of the beard. If you're itchy, if you got like the beard dander, like the skin flakes on your shirt and whatnot, just get you a little bit of beard oil. A little bit of beard oil, rub it together in your hands, rub it in your beard. Night and day difference. Your beard will smell better, it'll feel better, your face will stop itching, probably even stop losing some of the hair there. Should help to start grow it back, because it's getting some nutrients, it's getting some moisture. So definitely check him out. But appreciate everybody watching. We will be back next week, because we'll do a prediction as far as who I have for the first two big games for college football. Because like last year, I only did Power 4 versus Power 4. I won't do Power 4 versus Group of 6. That's so many games, too big of a pain in the butt. I only like to do Power 4 versus Power 4, because those are the games that matter the most. So we'll do those next week. We'll have predictions. We'll probably have a little bit more of NFL talk. And then after that, we get right into the season as far as NFL and college football goes. So appreciate everybody tuning in. Appreciate everybody watching. And we will see y'all later.
Hi, I'm Beaker with Military Broadcast Radio TV. We're your virtual MWR, bringing veterans radio, podcasts, gaming, animation, 3D printing, and a community that never leaves you behind. Download our Roku or mobile app today.
Wisdom to share if you listen this week, so pull up a chair and stay for a spell. We're heading down a trail where good stories dwell.